everybody, so with the release of Godzilla vs. Kong and the possibility that this could be the end of the MonsterVerse of Godzilla vs. Kong, I figured it's the perfect time to give my ranking of worst to best when it comes to every film in the MonsterVerse. If you follow the channel, you're well aware that I'm a big Godzilla fan. This originally was going to be a ranking of all of the Godzilla films that we've gotten in the past, because I was doing a big Godzilla rewatch, including the MonsterVerse leading up to Godzilla vs. Kong, but I do need some time still when it comes to the Godzilla films, because there is a lot of Godzilla films, but I may still end up doing that down the road. I don't have a time frame for it. Also, before getting into my personal ranking, I would love to know how you would rank the MonsterVerse. Whether you've seen Godzilla vs. Kong yet or not, I'd love to know how you would rank the films from worst to best, just because I think there's going to be a lot of variations, because even though some films have to be the worst in the series, I actually do really enjoy all four of these films for different reasons, and I'm really excited to talk about them as a fan of the kaiju genre. But without further ado though, let's get right into the ranking. With my number 4 pick, I have Kong Skull Island. Now, I really do like the overall style that the film is going for. It has a very vibrant color palette to it, which makes for a really gorgeous film, whether we're following our human characters or we're in the action when it comes to Kong. Of course, it could seem biased, as I am a big Godzilla fan, that I put the Kong film in last place, but I do really like the version of Kong that we get in the MonsterVerse. He is quite smaller in this compared to Godzilla vs. Kong because he's not fully grown yet, but it makes for some interesting dynamics in the variety of creatures that he faces off with in Kong Skull Island, whether he's fighting off against giant squid or all of these deadly skull crawlers that we get throughout the film. The action sequences involving Kong are easily the standout moments of the film. They're extremely entertaining. I like the way that the action sequences are shot because they have some really great dynamic motion to them, and they're in broad daylight, so you can't hide any of these special effects. Because I do think the visual effects in Kong vs. Skull Island don't get enough credit because they can't hide anything in the darkness. A lot of the film is actually in the daylight. But where the film completely loses me is in its cast. I think this is probably the most shallow cast out of all of the MonsterVerse casts. Although I do love the cast itself, you know, Brie Larson, Tom Hiddleston, John C. Reilly, and Samuel L. Jackson, and more. I mean, I love them all in Marvel movies. I think they're all great Marvel actors and actors in other projects. But for me here, I honestly could not really care at all when it comes to their characters. Many of them die off throughout the film, like John Goodman as well. And I really felt nothing towards them at all. And even if they're played by megastars, it just didn't do it for me. For my number 3 pick, I have Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now, up until the most recent film, I think this had some of my favorite moments when it comes to monster action and also just destruction and mayhem as a whole in the whole series. It did exactly what a kaiju sequel should do and up the ante when it comes to the kaiju action. They brought in Mothra, Rodan, King Ghidorah. Each and every one of them gets moments to shine throughout the film, and they really bring their A-game here, as for the most part the film is non-stop kaiju action until the very end. I love that every main titan in the film had their own color palette associated with them. It really made for some really gorgeous imagery whenever they were on screen. You know, Godzilla's blue, Rodan is red, King Ghidorah is yellow. I really love some of the imagery we got from that. There's just so many memorable shots because of those color palettes. The one that always sticks out to me is the one of King Ghidorah with the cross. That's the one that that was like actually my wallpaper for a little bit. Just details like that make me appreciate the film even more, or other details when it comes to the actual titans themselves. I love that King Ghidorah, all three of his heads seem to have different personalities to them. The film does truly showcase that King Ghidorah is one of Godzilla's most formidable foes, as that final battle is one of my favorite moments of the MonsterVerse. I thought it was a really great, intense matchup between Godzilla, and also Mothra and Rodan were involved as well. Really amazing stuff there. I know I was really hyped as Godzilla went nuclear towards the end of that battle and he just destroyed all of Boston. And even though I don't go into these movies for the human characters, they do bog down the film once again in this, as I was really not a big fan of the human subplots in here, especially the characters like Vera Farmiga's character. Her subplot when it comes to the stuff she does with Charles Dance, I thought that was just not very well done. These MonsterVerse films always assemble a really great cast. You know, you have Millie Bobby Brown, Kyle Chandler, Vera Farmiga, and they just really waste a lot of these people. But of the human characters, I think they did a great job with Ken Watanabe. They gave him a really gorgeous send-off of the film when it comes to his moments with Godzilla. And even if I do love a lot of the kaiju action, there are some scenes that I'm not a big fan of, the way that they show the perspective of the kaiju battles. There's just certain moments where the view is too obstructed, whether it be because of the point of view of the action or just because it's a very dark and rainy environment, so you really can't make out what's going on sometimes. For my number 2 pick, I have Godzilla 2014. Now, for this being the very beginning of the MonsterVerse, I think it was a really great start. I think Gareth Edwards' directing is really strong here. I felt it set a really great precedent for how these giant monsters are supposed to look and feel in this universe, and how the world's going to deal with all of their destruction. Gareth Edwards brings so much visual flair to the film. There's so many breathtaking visual moments, whether they're involving monster action or not. I mean, the Halo jump scene is still one of the big scenes in the franchise that sticks out to me. This is probably the best film when it comes to building tension within the MonsterVerse. Maybe to a fault though, because I mean, I know a lot of the big complaints of this film is the fact that it keeps teasing a giant battle with Godzilla and then they cut away to something else. Because even as a big Godzilla fan, I was getting kind of frustrated the first time or two I watched the film, and they really blue-balled you with the Godzilla action until the very end. But as I've rewatched it so many times over the years, I've learned to appreciate that tension building, and I think it makes the final battle even more satisfying when he finally does take on the Mutos. I was really glad that they actually had Godzilla face off against the monster, I guess in this case 2 monsters in this, as opposed to the 98 Godzilla film where it was just him. But I like the design of the Mutos. I like that one actually is big and burly and one has wings, so it makes some really fun action in the final battle between them and Godzilla. And it was all the more satisfying when we get that final moment where the Muto gets the atomic breath down his throat. That was one of the best moments I feel in all of the MonsterVerse, if I'm being honest, just because of how epic that moment was. Especially as a big Godzilla fan, that was top tier for me. One of my favorite moments in the whole franchise. I found myself liking this cast a little bit more than King of the Monsters or Skull Island. I think they have a little bit more to them. They're still not great characters overall, but I think that they do the best with the material they're given, like Aaron Taylor Johnson and Elizabeth Olsen. I do think the big standout, though, is Bryan Cranston. It's just a shame that they killed him off so early. I really would have loved to have seen his character kind of progress. It almost felt like we were just scratching the surface of his character before his tragic demise in the film. But I really do love the setup for Godzilla 2014, for the MonsterVerse to come. It's probably the one I rewatched the most out of all the films, at least probably until the #1 pick, of course. And with my #1 pick, I have Godzilla vs. Kong, the big event for the MonsterVerse that we were all waiting for this whole time, and I really feel like it absolutely delivered on everything that I wanted and more. Whether you're a big Godzilla fan, a King Kong fan, or just a big fan of the kaiju genre in general, you're going to leave this film with a big smile on your face just because of how epic everything in this film is. The film is the definition of popcorn entertainment. It's Godzilla and King Kong facing off against one another. It's amazing, and it's something that you really should see in theaters if you're able to. Certainly come a long way when it comes to film and visual effects in the last 60 years or so since the original Godzilla vs. King Kong, and it's a spectacle that you really do need to see. The film truly delivers on the Godzilla vs. King Kong action sequences that we were all promised, and I really think the final act of this film is probably going to stick with me for the rest of the year as one of the most entertaining moments that I've seen on film. As I've been saying consistently, the human characters in a lot of these films don't do it for me, but I think that the ones in here are actually not half bad. I think Brian Tyree Henry is probably my favorite of the characters in the Godzilla vs. King Kong film, but I do think the little girl involved as well, the one that communicates with Kong, she's adorable, and she actually brings some emotional weight to the story when it comes to her interactions with Kong, and I actually really like that aspect being added to the film. I will admit, I was a bit nervous when I saw that the runtime for this is actually the shortest out of all of the MonsterVerse, since it's supposed to be like the big epic thing we've been building up to, but I think that it actually does benefit from a shorter runtime. It's paced very well. There's really no downtime that you really get bored with any of the different characters throughout the film's story, and I actually think that it's a really great finale if this was going to be the finale for the MonsterVerse. I don't want it to be the finale. I want to see more Godzilla and King Kong action, but if this truly is the end of the MonsterVerse, because, you know, the legal stuff with Legendary and Toho and all that, I'm really satisfied with the way that we ended it. You know, it went out with a bang at least. And there you have it, all 4 films in the MonsterVerse ranked from worst to best. Even the film I like the least, I still really enjoy. I really enjoy the MonsterVerse, and I hope that it doesn't come to an end this way. I think there is still potential for other films in the universe that I would love to see explored in some shape or form. But I'd love to know down below, what is your ranking of the MonsterVerse? I'd love to know what your favorite film, your least favorite film is. Whether you've seen Godzilla vs. Kong or not, I'd still love to know your ranking. I would love to know your thoughts about Godzilla vs. Kong as well if you do get a chance to see it, whether you're seeing it in theaters or on HBO Max when it hits HBO Max, or if you're seeing it internationally, because it's already out internationally in a lot of different places. Just know if you are seeing it in theaters opening night in the US on the 31st, I'll be there as well. I'm gonna rock the Team Godzilla shirt and see it in IMAX on the big screen, because I'm really excited to see the film again, this time on the biggest screen with the best sound system. But thank you guys, as always, checking out the ranking. I really do appreciate it. Make sure you like on the video and also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, so you can keep updating my movie reviews, channel reactions, rankings, unboxings, and more on the channel. But until next time, I'll see you guys later.